Super Rugby AU continues to dole out the results, which are pretty bloody close. 3 between the Rebels and the Force in a game which was a wee bit different from the Reds and the Brumbies, which is without a doubt one of the best games I have seen in a very, very long time. I'll go over these games quickly, the stats, the key events, and you guys can let me know your thoughts on the games. It was like a First Nations round, so they were all wearing alternative jerseys, which was pretty cool. Really good to see. Decent crowds for both games as well, which is pretty encouraging. Especially that Brumbies crowd looked really good. I think over 10,000 people they said they got out there. Which, if you compare that to recent years, the Brumbies crowds were one of the worst in Super Rugby, like when it was the old Super Rugby. So, yeah, really good to see the people from Canberra getting out there to support a team, even if they did lose. Hopefully they went home feeling pretty well entertained. The first game, though, in terms of the entertainment value, you get your entertainment value mostly from the fact that it's a close game. The first half was a tough watch, I will admit, and I will say, overall, I think the quality of Super Rugby AU, I don't know if I mentioned this before, I think I've mentioned it probably a few times, has been spot on. Like, last season, the first few games were a bit below par, and the competition kind of built into the season. Whereas this season, I think pretty much all the teams have kind of hit the ground. They've hit the ground really well running, and the game's entertainment value has been phenomenal. And I love that it's a close game, but the first half was a bit of a tough watch. Like both sides were very struggling to build phases and to break down each other's defense. I wrote a note that said like high intensity but low execution, which is probably a good way of summing it up if I can blow my own horn. What were the highlights of the first half? There was Rebels collapsing the maul over the Lions. They missed a chance. And then the Rebels monstered the Force scrum on the Force's feed. Rob Carney kicked a really nice 50-22, which was a bit of good play. McIntyre missed a penalty shot for the Force, went pretty well wide. Hansen looked like he scored a sure thing try, but he knocked it on over the line. So none of the execution was there. Everything was kind of missing. Lockie Anderson did get the only try of the first half on 27 minutes, kind of 4 passes out to the right, and he was able to go over. They missed the conversion though, so 5-0. And right before halftime, the Force had some maul, penalty, and whatnot chances, but they couldn't convert. So, 5-0 at halftime. Possession was 61-39 to the Rebels. Territory 75-25. Knock-ons were 5-4. Interestingly, like a lot of kicks, 16-17. 16-17. And like run meters. I checked 2 different websites to make sure it was correct. 36-35 at halftime, which seems bonkers. I don't know if that can be right, but that's very, 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 very low. Very low. Like, I've seen teams have 10. I think 10's the lowest I've seen, but at least the other team had like 50, 80, 100 odd. Like 70 odd run meters for one half of rugby is not the best. Line out 70% and 88%, so even that was not great. But the defensive stats, 93% for the Force, 86% for the Rebels, so tackling very high. What can you say? Second half, the Force... was it the Force? I can't even remember now. There was a penalty that hit the post. Not quite. And then Joe Powell got a second try for the Rebels on 62. Showed some wheels. Corabetti was probably the main guy in terms of your attacking threat for the entire game. He looked, and he still looks dangerous. He's not scored a try this season yet, but he looks very dangerous every time he's got the ball. He beats a defender, gets it to Powell, and Powell scores the try. So 10-0. The Force get held up on 67 minutes after a bunch of phases, and then on 68 they finally get some quick balls, some proper hands, and McGregor is able to finish that one, and they convert it to make it 10 points to 7. Game on, and Ross Haylett-Petty gets red carded on 70 for a high shot as well. So the Reds go down a man, not the Reds, the Rebels go down a man for the final 10. The lights go out on 73 minutes. They kind of stop play for a while, trying to get the lights back on. They resume play. The Force go close, but the Rebels win a turnover, and then the Rebels win a scrum penalty towards the end. It's a bit of an escape, but it's a first win for the Rebels this season. A loss at home for the Force, disappointing, but they do get a losing bonus point. Yeah, the game had a bit of drama at the end. Two teams that don't like each other that much. But as I said, the execution could have been better. Possession finishes 51-49, so pretty close. That's in favour of the Rebels. Territory 51-49, likewise the same. Turnovers conceded 12-8, with the Rebels conceding a few more. Run meters finishes like 300 something, 500 something. So I'm wondering if those halftime stats were a bit underdone, but maybe not. Don't know. Clean breaks finishes 15-13. I would say the majority in the second half. Lee Warner has 17 out of 18 tackles. Marika Korobidi has 134 run meters, 5 clean breaks, and 6 defenders beaten. He's a machine. Absolute machine. Good win for the Rebels. Disappointing for the Force, as I said. But, yeah, close. I like the fact that the games have been close this year. The next game, as I said, instant classic. 40 points to 38 with a try at the death to get it done. How many events do we go over for this one? Good crowd, as I mentioned. Penalty early for the Brumbies to make it 3-zip. And then a try through Pete Samu. Twinkle toes down the sideline. Muirhead with the offload. 10-0. The Brumbies looking very comfortable. More than a point a minute. The Reds take the ball back on 10 minutes. So there's a 5-metre scrum to the Brumbies. They get a penalty from the scrum. They go touch. The Reds get a yellow card warning because they've been conceding too many penalties. And then they maul it. Fainga gets a try, as the Brumbies are like to do. And they're kind of lucky to avoid the yellow card there, the Reds, because the ref actually said, if he hadn't scored, you guys collapsed the maul, you would have got a yellow card. So they avoid the yellow card. But it's 17-0, man. And the Reds are looking already almost dead and buried. Like going to Canberra is somehow their kind of kryptonite. They just can't perform. On 17 minutes, though, they kick a penalty just to kind of settle things down. And the commentary team talked about it as well. Like, they're 17 points behind, but they need to chill for a bit. So when they win a penalty, James O'Connor opts to kick it. The guys have a chance to calm down. They get some points on the board to 17-3. It seemed like a strange decision, but it does make sense. Whereas if you rush a penalty, it's like for touch, and you muck it up, then emotionally and mentally the guys are in a worse spot than before they won the penalty. 22 minutes, the Brumbies turn for a yellow card warning because the Reds are actually starting to come back into the game. They conceded a few penalties in a row. They kick another one, the Reds, to make it 17-6. Reds, 29 minutes, period of pressure. Jock gets a line break. He gets it to Vunivalu, who does well because he takes the ball essentially kind of behind his hip, which is not easy to do when you're running full tilt. And he avoids a tackle to go over. First try for him. Suddenly it's 17-13. 17-13's game on. Pete Samu tries to take it back away from them with a try on 35 minutes. A great pass from Nick White in the build-up. 24-13, starting to look a little bit more comfortable. And then the Reds get one more penalty before halftime to make it 24-16. So it's still game on, but the Brumbies still in control at halftime. Second half, the Brumbies get another maul try. 46 minutes. It's just the maul goes left, it kind of shimmies right, and then Fainga is just able to go over to make it 31-16. The maul is just such an offensive weapon for the Brumbies, you got to say. The Reds do take a penalty shot later, and it hits the post. Commentators at this point are starting to give them a lot of grief for not opting for the touchline. They're saying, why do these guys keep taking threes? But when you look at that scoreline, it's all justified in the end. From here, it's kind of when the Reds start to turn the screws a bit, and their scrum is a large reason, I think, as to why they were able to be successful. They go through some phases on 61. Eventually, Tupou is able to power over. I thought the ref did a really good job of actually spotting the grounding because it wasn't an easy one with all the bodies in there. Cusack looked injured as well, which was he looked a bit ginger for the Brumbies. 31-23. So starting to get a wee bit closer. I wrote 67 minutes. That red scrum, man. 5 meters out, and then Wilson goes over from the back of that to make it 31-30. Absolutely game on. But then just as the Reds are starting to close the gap, the Brumbies take it away. Fines gets a try. Ikitau manages to draw two guys. and gets it to Samu. Samu gives it to, finds Lelawasa. ESPN only had his first barrel of his two-barreled name. I'll look that up later. But 38-33. Looks like the Brumbies have done enough just to push it out. You know, the 2 scores for the Reds to win it. And then straight from the kickoff, Valtini knocks it on. Like, you've just done that work. He knocks it on. The Reds scrum it, of course. They win a penalty, of course. They kick it 38-33, back within striking distance. And then 76 minutes. Remember I talked about that Reds lock Uru being like dynamic? He hits a massive line break, puts the hammer down, and then a couple of minutes later, Pataya gets a try. For some mad reason, the Reds decide to go for a grubber kick. Was it Paisami? And they look to have mucked it up because the kick bounce looks horrible. The posts are in the way. But Pataya, you got to watch the highlights, man. Pataya kind of swings around the post and manages to just control it to get the grounding. Unbelievable. Unbelievable try. 40 points to 38. First lead change of the match. And that's enough for the Reds to get it done. What a game that was. Absolutely pure entertainment. Possession 51-49, territory 54-46 in favour of the Brumbies. Knock-ons 8-5 with the Reds having a few more. Run meters 275-252, pretty close. Reds scrum is at 100%. The Brumbies concerningly 62, but remember they were without Ala Alatoa, which was always going to be an area of focus. Lineouts both sides 100%. Tackling both sides and the high numbers 90% for the Brums, 85 for the Reds. But remember, if it's a maul try or if it's like Wilson's one from the back of that scrum, there's no missed tackles there, so it's a bit flattering. Penalties conceded 12-6. Brumbies 12. That's yeah. Clean breaks 5 apiece. Defenders beaten 18-11 with the Brumbies having more offloads 7 apiece. So all across the board, very even game. The Brumbies maul, the Red scrum, it was always going to be that battle. Vunivalu's got wheels. We definitely saw that. Scott Young makes 12 from 12 tackles. Muirhead has a try assist, 54 run meters and 5 defenders beaten. Lots to like about that game. The Brumbies are on the bye next. And the Reds have got the Force at home. They'll be big time favourites for that one. Maybe the Reds for the 2021 season. We will see. Either way, very, very entertaining game. If you haven't seen it, even if you know the score, definitely watch the highlights. It's certainly worth going back and having a squiz. That one, I would say probably just the highlights, but it's intense if nothing else. Anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts on these games. Do you think this makes the Reds the favourites? Do you think the Force have got a chance of pipping anybody else but the Tars? Don't know. It didn't quite click as well as we might have hoped last night, but night before. Anyway, you guys take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you soon. See you later.